speaking of wife swap, just adapting to change in relationships and in the workplace, it's inevitable. It's something that we have to do. And we've got Lucia Dramat, motivational coach and speaker. You're going to help us navigate this and come to terms with how to do this in our lives.
Absolutely. At least I'm going to try.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to throw you curveballs now. You're the only one alone on the big couch, so we have to
yes,
do that.
It's a very big space to fill.
Let's go with relationships first. Okay. Now, relationships, it's a partnership.
Yes.
Should be fluid, should be amazing, should be walks on the beach, roses, flowers. But then there's difficulty in when your partner starts changing or you start changing or there's a change in the context, change in things like kids are coming through, change of house, a lot of changes. So why is there's so much difficulty around changing, especially in a relationship?
I think we have to separate change and then we also have to separate growth.
Ha!
Because some things are growth, it is not change. And you've been growing since the moment you were born. You learn to sit. Hopefully. You learn to sit, you learn to crawl, walk, do all those things, read, write, subjects. You've been growing all the time.
Yes.
Growth is the most natural thing. Stagnation is not. So although our comfort zone feels good, it is normal for us to grow.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel good to grow. So you should really separate what is growth and what is change. And change needs motivation, needs a reason.
Yes.
There's a reason you are changing. And I think if the reason is clear, change becomes much more easy.
Wow, you literally just blew my mind, like recently having a child and life is evolving.
Yes.
And understanding what that evolution comes from and why circumstances evolve and adapting to the circumstances instead of grieving. I think a lot of people have kids, they grieve their past. Anyway, it's really interesting. It's really exciting. So, trying to understand your partner's perspective in things is really important. Could we be lacking, in that regard? And are we too stuck in our ways to actually understand what our partner is contributing or thinking or needs?
I think if you have open channels of communication and you really share, this is what I contribute, this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm feeling right now, then the other person gets a little bit of insight into what's going on in your mind. Mm-hmm. We obviously come from different backgrounds, sometimes different races, different cultures, and we process things differently. Our minds are our operating systems. The same as devices have operating systems, our mind has an operating system, and it's been processed or programmed to process things in a specific way. So by you looking at me like this, I'm like, oh, is he upset with me? What's going on? And you thinking, no, I'm just thinking. So how you process that look and how I process that look might be different. So we need to understand, hey, how do you feel about this action? How do you feel about taking risks? How do you feel about stepping out? How do you feel about stability? I think if we start to understand each other better, it becomes much more easy to work together. And then when change comes, you can go for it because now you know why we need to do this.
Yeah, and understanding how your partner interprets things is super important because communication is not just the words we say. And even then, we might be being manipulative or, it's such an interesting thing to really understand your partners, to understand all of that. It's like understand how they interpret what we're saying, what they understand from what we're giving them, our body language, what they need physically. It's really important.
So let's go scenario time because things do change. And adaptability is what we're focusing on over here. But now, the adaptability is going to be different for everybody in the relationship. So you, as two individuals, are adapting to, let's just say, economic changes in South Africa. And one of the partners have to work a little bit more often than the other one. But there used to be this beautiful balance. But now, the other partner on the back end of you working so often now has to adapt themselves. But you are adapting to the economic context because you're working more often. Now there is two parallels of adaptation. How do we find a bridge to make sure the relationship is still on the same page?
What is normal is growth, like I mentioned earlier. And that, like you mentioned, has a purpose.
Yeah.
Someone has to work more because we have more to cover, we've got more to take care of.
Yes.
And so I think where people come together and say the common goal is we need to handle what we're handling.
Yes.
So that, I think, makes change easier. The problem with change for a lot of people is they focus on change or the pain of change. They think, oh, it's going to be so painful. It's going to be so terrible. It's going to take so long. When are we ever going to get there? They do all of that, and that's what they think about when they think about change, as opposed to thinking about the results of the change, which is, Okay, it's going to provide us more flexibility in the future. It's going to allow us to keep our vehicles and our home and the things that
Yes.
we enjoy having right now. So yes, we might have a little less time, but we're going to have more of everything else that we enjoy.
Yes.
So I think that is important to really focus on what are the results of the change? Why are we doing this? What is the goals? And that would make the transition easier. And that makes it easier to be adaptable because you know why you're doing it.
What about in the context, and especially in South Africa, of couples that are in multicultural relationships?
I think if you go into any relationship, you have to be open to compromise. You have to be open to learn. You have to be open to seeing the other person's perspective. It doesn't even matter if it's different cultures, even if you're the same race, the same culture.
Yeah.
We grew up differently.
Yeah.
We do different things. Some people are readers, some people watch series, some people are gamers. We have to learn about each other. What do we enjoy? How do we do life? What do we think about finances? How do we deal with kids? All those things are conversations that need to be had. And also, we need to look at the motivation behind it. How did my family do it? And what would I like to take into the way I do it with my children? How does my spouse's family do it? And what would he like to take forward? And as we connect on that, we can build a future that works for both of us.
Yo, thank you so much.
Brilliant, Lucia. No, that's fantastic. We've covered relationships. Of course, the workplace is another big relationship area that we need to cover, and we will do that with Lucia in the next couple of minutes. So stick with us, your Feel Good Breakfast Show.
It's my Feel Good Breakfast Show.
Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show. This is Expresso, and we are chatting about adaptability. In case you missed it, we chat about relationships in general with motivational speaker and coach Lucia Dramat. And this is about the inevitability of change. It happens in all contexts, but we're going to change context now to the workplace, some place that we spend, in fact, the majority of our hours of the day in. And it's important to actually navigate that process too. So let's do a case study just to start you off, right? The CEO who cut his pay so struggling workers earn more than $70,000 per year. So in 2012, Dan Price, CEO of Gravity Payments, he decided to make a bold move to better understand the challenges faced by his employees. He slashed his own salary and began earning the company's minimum wage to experience life on the front lines. This experience of stepping into employees' shoes not only increases empathy, but also improves the company's culture and employee morale. What a bold move with regard to that. And I mean, imagine more companies did that in South Africa. What do you think our workforce would be like now?
I think people will see that leadership really tries to understand where they're coming from. And that's the thing with empathy. It's finding something in yourself that connects with something someone else is going through. So it's not looking down at them and saying, oh, that's not good, I hope you're okay, you know, but it's rather saying, hey, there's a moment that I felt like that as well, and I can connect with you. I can connect with how you're feeling. And I think that's exactly what he did. And I think that makes people respect him. Think, wow, I can talk to this person because he's willing to do the crazy stuff to see how we feel. And I think that would make a big difference in South Africa.
Yeah, and also as an individual, like if you're an employee, you're not just the face at the office, right? You're a holistic human being, and your financial situation impacts who you are and your personality and how stressed or not stressed you are at work. And I think putting himself in those shoes gives himself, oh, I understand why my employees are acting this way, or you know, what they actually need, which is really cool.
So adaptability in the case of an organization, what you find is that the management, the organizational diagram has this cascade of pressures that ultimately end on the bottom. So for instance, the board is telling your boss to get productivity up. Your boss is saying to more people, you need to work harder. The people who are saying, I need to work harder, are also struggling with the petrol increases, so they get to work a little earlier so they can work harder. But they're earning less because their taxi fare just went up. So the board, who's putting pressure up here, is not feeling a taxi fare down here. Do you think that more companies need to try and break up that little organizational diagram to actually look at the motivations of that bottom level, so to speak, of the organizational diagram to be a bit more effective and more sort of, I'm going to say, add motivation to every sector of the company? Because it just feels like oblivious productivity, do it now. But what's the cost?
I think that, just to give a quick answer, yes, that would be great. But when it comes to business, business is always about profitability.
Yes, it is.
And I think that's always going to be the number one thing. So yes, in kind of utopia, we want everyone to have that moment where we value you and we think about your very situation. And that CEO did something absolutely amazing.
Yes.
But it's not something that's going to happen everywhere. I do think that people should pay attention to their staff and their staff wellness at each and every level.
Yeah.
I believe personal development is really important, and providing spaces for personal development for each person. Because as you grow, you might grow out of your position.
Yes.
You grow into the next position. You grow into a space where you can take more control of your life and build the life that you want. The dependence on leadership, sometimes we put too much dependence on leadership, where we should be leading ourselves to the spaces that we want to be in. Because leadership, that is also just a person that is basically what they've been exposed to, what the pressures are on them. They're looking at all those things and they're saying, okay, what can I do?
Yeah.
But it's one person or it's 5 people. And if we put the dependency on ourselves to grow, to develop, to move forward, then we can actually see progress and not feel disappointed that other people don't see what we want them to see in us.
Yeah, the best colleagues and employees and employers that I've worked with have been the ones that take initiative, which is super important. I just want to roll it back away from CEOs and like to people that are going to work today, that are going to spend time with their colleagues. I want to chat about boundaries. Like, are boundaries a way of adapting to those relationships so that you can do your job well, but also for your own mental health? Because you're thrown into a family of people, right?
Yep.
How does that work?
I think we definitely have to have boundaries. And there are some people that are people pleasers, so they say yes, 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 and they take on so much, and then they're exhausted, they don't want to go to work, and they feel stressed, and someone else sitting there thinks, oh, I don't even know what's going on. I don't know, why is this person stressed? So yes, you definitely have to have boundaries. I think that if you want to grow, you always need to learn. You always need to take in more. Change is part of life, and I'll give you 3 tools to change in just a moment as well. But I think that you have to have boundaries. You have to know what you can say yes to and what you can't say no to, or what you can say no to, so that you do not overextend yourself.
Give us the 3 rules.
Yes, absolutely. So for change, there are 3 ways that you can change. Number 1, you have an epiphany. Something hits you and you're like, I can no longer eat fish or whatever. You just have this moment and now you change your habits based on that epiphany or revelation moment. The second way to change is baby steps. So I'm just going to do a little bit of this, I'm going to do a little bit of that every single day. You add those little baby steps and you see the evolution happen. And then the third way to change is to change your environment or your surroundings. If you are in a different place, now all of a sudden you see different things. There's different conversations, and it will have an impact because you're consuming different conversations, different energy, different food, different weather. All those things start to change how you feel. So if you want to create change, those are 3 things that can help you create change. And as I mentioned earlier, it is about seeing the benefits of the change, not focusing on the pain of the change.
Look at that. It's like when you go to gym, your muscles will be sore, but don't worry, 6-pack coming soon. Adaptability has been wonderful. Lucia, thank you so much for joining Grant and I, and just really unpacking so beautifully in relationships as well as the workplace. And naturally, as you heard, there's purpose behind change. So trust the process, trust the purpose behind it, and adapt at every single cost. It's going to be worth it in the end. As we get into the kitchen with something very exciting that doesn't need any change. It'll stay just the way it is.